All right, fellas, here we're back in another Pokemon Legends ZA video, kind of. Okay, so I don't do reaction videos ever. I mean, I pretty much have never reacted to a video on my channel ever. I did like when I was like fucking 13 years old once. I think I was like 12. Don't tell YouTube guidelines that I made a channel when I was 12. But anyway, I wanted to react to this video. I found this video like 2 days ago, and I was very interested in like the concept of it, and I wanted to kind of like give my thoughts on it, react to like its ideas, and give my thoughts on it at the same time. I have seen one of Amaze Dragon's videos, and I really like them. I'm not sure how much I would agree on a lot of like the theories put out, but I like how they're structured and I like how they're kind of like analyzed. If they want me to take this video down, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to contest that. I'm just saying I'm putting in my own constructive criticism on the video, my own like thoughts and elements. I'm doing my own commentary. I'm not just going to be using the video to like freeload and like say nothing the whole time. I really want to emphasize this is not meant to be like lazy content. This is very similar to me the the Pokemon conspiracy theory Reddit stuff, like where I read people's ideas on there and I give my own thoughts. Similar to that. That's what I want to kind of like highlight this stuff as. So please do not think I'm like stealing their content, because I'm not trying to. But if they want me to take the video down once this goes up, I'm gonna do that. But original video, I'm gonna put it in the description. Shout out to their channel. You can see it right here. You can see the link to the video right here. There you go. All right, go watch it yourself. Or go give them support at the very least. All right, this is all theirs. This is their video. So, how did Necrozma steal Pokemon ZA's light? Very interesting theory, very interesting idea. I don't think is gonna mean anything, but I think it's just very interesting to potentially think about anyway. So let's go ahead and start the video and get like their ideas.
The Ultra Megalopolis used
go ahead and
to
put
be
the captions on
City,
as well.
And in Pokemon Legends,
The Ultra Megalopolis used to be Lumiose City. Okay, that's actually interesting. So for the simple fact that like it's not saying Necrozma is going to come into ZA, it's saying that Ultra Megalopolis itself is Lumiose Tower, or at least Lumiose City. That's honestly a really interesting theory to potentially put out there, because we do know that like Ultra Space does have its own. It does have like its own versions of like regions and whatnot, right? Like there was Howoli City. Is that how you say it? Howoli City? I think it was like is what the Ultra Ruin is in like Guzzlord's dimension, which is very interesting. So I'm curious on that.
ZA, we may witness the exact moment its light was stolen. How do
Witness the exact moment its light was stolen. That's
I
interesting.
know this? Well, Nintendo's been dropping hints for a while now. Lumiose City, often called the City of Light, is a massive urban hub.
Often called the City of Light. Is it? Hold on, is that true? It actually is. Lumiose City's subtext here is the City of Light. That's actually really interesting to bring up.
Kalos. At its core stands Prism Tower, a glowing high-tech landmark. Take the elevator to the top and you'll meet the city's gym leader. Now look at the Ultra Megalopolis, a city from another dimension. One where all the light has been stolen. A city of darkness. At its center, Megalo Tower, and
I do like that potential parallel though, where like, you got yourself your City of Light, Lumiose, and then completely stolen light with Necrozma. I don't think they're definitely not going to do anything major with Necrozma in this game, like at all. I don't think Necrozma or Ultra Beast are going to be in the game, very, very out there guess, I would say. But the idea of it though, with Lumiose actually being dubbed this like the City of Light, having Necrozma steal its light would make a lot of sense. Just given it. Let's rewind a little bit.
Stolen, a city of darkness.
And yeah, Megalopolis did not do good.
Necrozma, the prison Pokemon, restrained. And what better place to imprison a prism than inside Lumiose City's own Prism Tower?
It is called Prism Tower too. I'm very curious like what their thoughts were on this. I feel like it's something interesting about Legends ZA or like Pokemon Z is like the fact that a lot of Pokemon Z ideas got put into Pokemon Sun and Moon. I need to turn down my AC. Okay, sorry about that, but I got like a lot of the ideas of Pokemon Z, what was going to be Pokemon Z, like the third version of X and Y, ended up getting put into Sun and Moon, which we know for a fact to be true because of the entire Zygarde quest, and like its cells being huntable, Ash Greninja being a playable Pokemon in Sun and Moon, but obviously not in X and Y. Obviously, the return of Mega Evolution. I think the return of Mega Evolution was more so just to keep up with the gimmick, but also I think that could be like a nod to like Pokemon Z. I think those are like the big ones that obviously lead to us saying that the most of Pokemon Z content was scrapped to be put in Sun and Moon. the potential idea that Necrozma would have been one of those things, where Necrozma is this light devourer that could have stolen the light of Lumio City, that was then just shoved into Sun and Moon, and then it ended up being the main antagonist of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, stealing the light of Alola and the Pokemon world, right? That could potentially make a lot of sense for them to actually like bring that concept back, even if it's not going to be in this game. I think that is something just very interesting to talk about in general, is that Pokemon Z could have had Necrozma in it and it would have made sense.
Like Legends Arceus pulled us into Sinnoh's distant past, ZA might be doing the same. This is the prelude to the Ultra Recon Squad's world. This is
The prelude to the Ultra Recon Squad world. I'm not really sure how much I would believe that, but the idea that, you know, these Legends games are giving us the idea of how, like, you know, in at least in Legends Arceus, it was like how Ancient Sinnoh was formed. The idea of ZA potentially being like of how the Ultra Recon Squad's world was formed, you know, which would have been in some sort of past, is interesting. When we think it takes place in like future Lumiose, that actually ends up being a parallel world to our Pokemon world, and it was in the past where Lumios's light was stolen. But at the same time, I really don't want to believe that for the simple fact that I don't think they're going to do it like that. I think that's just a massive coincidence. But it's, and like people kind of reaching for things, but I think it's more so just that like they don't want the Pokemon game to end with like a bad end where, you know, Necrozma steals Pokemon, you know, the light of Lumio City, right? I don't think they want to end on that note.
Their light was lost. So who exactly tried to control Necrozma in the first place? We're actually given a huge clue in the Legends CA trailers.
Are we?
We're told that Quasartico Inc. is redeveloped.
I guess that's true. Quasartico. Yeah, we don't really know what Quasartico's entire gimmick is yet, like how they're like working. Our ideas are probably like they're abusing Mega Evolutions and like Zygarde and stuff like that. Maybe Yveltal and Xerneas like Lysander was. But we really don't know much about them. I mean, a lot of people are probably saying like, oh, they're villains, right? Which is fair. I think I could definitely see that. I definitely would be believing of that too. Big capitalist, you know, company being a villain. You know, who would have done that before? It's almost as if it's real. But like, I could definitely see that happening. So is Quasartico really trying to like abuse Necrozma
Lumio
for
City.
whatever
Let's
their
take
purpose
a closer
is?
look at that name. Quasartico comes from Quasar, an ultra-luminous galactic core often brighter than an entire galaxy.
Yeah.
What is Necrozma if not the ultimate Quasar? So a company named after cosmic...
I mean, that could be true. I think it's more so the fact that if they are dealing with Mega Evolutions, a lot of Megastones, not a lot of Megastones came from space, but like, you know, Galactic Weapon was Galactic Weapon. I mean, it may as well have been. Ultimate Weapon was fired into space, you know, came back down, Mega Evolution stuff was formed, you know, yada yada, right? I think that kind of plays into that. And also the fact that Rayquaza needs like space rocks, asteroids basically to Mega Evolve kind of implies that like a lot of Mega Evolution energy can kind of come from space or like was impacted by like the atmosphere. So if Quasartico is going into space or like dealing with Mega Evolution rather, it kind of means that they probably are going to go be like in space a little bit, something like that, and Quasar space. I think that's more the relation, less so Necrozma being like Quasar related.
light sources appearing just as
Which
the
it
city is
can
being
be, but still.
redeveloped. That's no coincidence. Quasartico isn't just some construction.
Let me
the
hold
city
on.
is the ultimate Quasar. So a company named after cosmic light sources appearing just as the city is being redeveloped. That's no coincidence. Quasartico isn't just some construction firm. In the Pokemon world, redevelopment is almost always tied to energy, or more specifically, experimental energy sourced from Pokemon themselves. Think about the Aether Foundation.
I guess that's, you know, honestly, that in the sense that is true. I mean, obviously, Aether Foundation trying to summon Ultra Beasts and stuff like that, and, you know, make utopia for people in Pokemon. Obviously, Macros Cosmos was trying to absorb energy from Eternatus, right? You know, that makes sense. I see it, but I think again, it's less of the case of them trying to abuse like Necrozma as a power source, and more so likely Mega Evolution or like Mega Evolution energy, like kind of I guess what Lysander Labs did, right? Like Lysander Labs wanted to use the ultimate weapon, which had a lot of its own energy, right? And all of that's kind of related to Mega Evolution more so than like Necrozma itself. Which again, you know, maybe you could say make the argument that Necrozma is going to go back to like to being a potential Pokemon Z type of Pokemon that, you know, it was going to have that relation or something like that. You know, it could make sense. And maybe you can also say that the Ultra Recon Squad and like whoever was in their world, it wasn't Quasartico, but you know, if it's completely unrelated to Pokemon, like Lumio City and stuff like that, they were just the ones abusing Necrozma and trying to get its light, which I'm pretty sure is confirmed canon, by the way, that they tried to detain Necrozma and like use its light source and it kind of like rebelled. I don't know. I could be making that up.
Hiding Ultra Beast research behind a humanitarian front, or Macrocosmos, who
Yeah,
controlled Galar's energy
Macrocosmos.
grid while secretly reviving Eternatus, a Pokemon of world-class destructive power.
Yeah, it's a little
Quasartico
strong.
is no different. They want
And
to
I don't.
extract
True. I don't
Necrozma's
think
power
Quasartico's
for
any different.
themselves. The Z in ZA doesn't just hint towards Zygarde, it also hints towards Necrozma's Z power, or the light that it constantly
That could be
radiates.
interesting to think
carry out their
about.
plans, Quasartico introduces something called the ZA.
Is it true though? I mean, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, Z power, yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, it is fair if you want to think about Pokemon Z and stuff like that. I don't know where the A comes from in this, but like, I guess you could try and make the argument that it's all related to Pokemon Z, where they were like, oh, let's give Z moves, which is like related to Zygarde, but then they ended up making it like related to Necrozma, which could have also been a potential Pokemon Z thing, right? Like, it all really ties back to like what ideas they really like wanted to put in Pokemon Z that ended up getting shifted to Sun and Moon that we really just don't know about because obviously we're not like internal developers and stuff. I think it's curious on
a
that.
nighttime tournament held in Lumiose City. On the surface, it's just a competitive challenge where you climb from rank Z to rank A, and the prize, any wish the victor could want. Now,
Any wish is interesting. I'm very curious how they're going to do that.
that's no ordinary tournament prize. In a region centered around Zygarde, Mega Evolution, and Infinity Energy, the concept of wishing
infinite
becomes
energy.
incredibly suspect. So what's
That is
really
true.
going on here? The ZA Royale isn't just a tournament, it's a test. A controlled environment created by Quasartico to identify trainers who can endure sustained Mega Evolution over multiple battles. Why? Because those trainers could also survive continuous exposure to Infinity Energy, and thus possibly even survive direct contact with Necrozma's Z power. And that wish might not be metaphorical at all.
I think that's just I mean, like, I can see what they're going for there, but I think that's just a bit of a stretch. Is like I feel like that's a little bit too comprehensive or like too planned out for like a Pokemon game. I feel like it's a lot of Pokemon games do have like their own backstory and stuff like that, and like their own ideas and like concepts they introduce, but a lot of them are also just very straightforward with what they're doing. I feel like developing a whole tournament just to like test trainers and see which one is able to actually like face Necroz with power could be I guess it is pretty basic as a concept, but it's just, again, it's like you're trying to make a link between Zygarde and Necrozma that might not be there at all. Like, I get it, I do, but I don't really, I'm not really too sure on it. I really just am not.
The winner could be given a chance to interface with Necrozma itself, promise their wish in exchange for acting as a conduit. But there's another layer to this tournament,
Conduit.
one far more sinister. Each stage of the ZA Royale takes place in designated battle zones, high-tech arenas scattered around Lumiose. These zones aren't just for spectacle, they're part of a carefully engineered system designed by Quasartico to harvest Infinity Energy. You see, every
Yeah, they
time
probably,
Mega
I
Evolution
could
is
definitely see
triggered-
that being something in the case where, like, Quasartico put like stuff in these specific zones for battling and like these specific zones for battling wild Pokemon and stuff like that, where, you know, every time you do something curious, you know, you gain like some sort of energy is formed and like studied and stuff like that, like something like that, right? I could definitely see them doing something like that where it's like all these battle zones were secretly just like tests where the energy you exuded through Mega Evolution was absorbed or like, you know, used for research, something like that.
You see, every time Mega Evolution is triggered, it taps into the life force of Pokemon. These battle zones are strategically rigged to drain that energy during
in a
every
way.
match, funneling it into the underground conduits beneath the city. But the world won't let that happen without resistance.
I think
And
a more curious theory about that is the fact that, like, if they are truly trying to control Necrozma, I think it's more so that if you're gonna go out with this theory, it's more so that any energy released by Mega Evolution, you know, it's light, it's whatever, ends up getting funneled into Necrozma to like give it power, let it sustain, and, you know, then abuse what Necrozma itself gives off after absorbing that.
Zygarde, not just a protector of nature, but the literal embodiment of balance. And in Kalos, that balance is already quite fragile, especially with Xerneas and Evento's existence.
Yeah, I mean, you got life and death. That's a pretty delicate balance.
Is also the region where Infinity Energy was used to fuel the ultimate weapon. Now, Quasartico is tapping into that same source again, this time trying to artificially...
I mean, really? Would you consider that? I guess, like, with Mega Evolution, sure, but hold on, I want to see.
Create the light that radiates from Necrozma.
Artificially create the light that radiates from Necrozma. Are you sure? Like, artificially creating light that radiates from Necrozma, I feel like it would be more so try to be used as a way to power up Necrozma or be a power source for Necrozma than anything. I don't know there.
Zygarde senses this imbalance, and it acts. At first, you
I
only
mean, that could make sense as well. I mean, I think Zygarde's mostly just going to be there because it can sense, like, whatever the hell Quasartico is doing to, like, mess up with the world. I mean, if we were to look at the ideas of whatever Pokemon Legend, like Pokemon Z was going to do, you know, probably in the same vein that it was going to try and be there to like stop Lysander or whatever. Like, again, whatever Pokemon Z story was going to be. If it was similar to X and Y, you know, you replace Xerneas Yveltal with Zygarde, and Zygarde's kind of just there to like stop Lysander's plan, or like try to at the very least. I think that's more so how they're playing into this, is that Zygarde's just going to be here to stop whatever Quasartico's doing or whatever the main antagonist is. And does that involve Necrozma, or does it have to involve Necrozma? Certainly not. But could it? You know, if you believe the theory.
a cell here, a core there, but as you progress through the ZA Royale, Zygarde begins to manifest through you, because it knows that it cannot do this alone. And what role does the Ancient King of
I think that could be something like separate that could make a lot of sense, is that the more you progress in the ZA Royale, the more like Zygarde recognizes your power, I guess, and like, you know, probably gains more power itself by going 10%, 50%, 100%, you know, whatever it does.
Kalos play in all of this. AZ has seen what happens when infinity energy is pushed too far. He lived it, he caused it, and he's carried that burden for 3,000 years. So when he sees Quasartico's plan unfolding, the same reckless ambition that once turned Kalos into a wasteland, he knows exactly where it leads. To AZ, the ZA...
I mean, that... Yeah, I mean, clearly AZ's role in this game has been determined to be like, you know, owner of this, like, basically what is like a cafe. I mean, just this building or whatever, where like you're going to be taking up refuge and stuff, and like probably, you know, going on your journey. But we don't really know, obviously, for sure what AZ's role is in this game yet. We don't know 100%. We know he's got his Floette. We could definitely see, obviously, the play into Infinite Energy. I think Infinite Energy is going to be a pretty big player in this game, simply because that is like the whole core of like AZ's character. You know, the entire thing with Mega Evolution to begin with. It was big in X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, right? So I could definitely see AZ's major role being like trying to stop abuse of Infinite Energy, like it's being stated here. But I really am not sure that Infinite Energy is playing into the part of Necrozma. More so, I think it's likely that Quasartico is just trying to abuse Mega Evolution or some, you know, special Pokemon that gives off Infinite Energy, you know, if they may reveal something like that, or AZ's Floette or whatever, right? In order to actually, you know, do something with that, whether it be trying to better the world or do their own thing, whatever. I think it's more so that this theory is trying to establish that they're trying to get all this infinite energy, which I do agree with. I do think that makes a lot of sense. But this theory kind of deviates in the fact that they think it's going to go to Necrozma, which, you know, being a light stealer and stuff like that, and like Lumiose looking like Megalopolis, I think those are more just very, very big coincidences.
Royale isn't just a tournament, it's the first tremor of another catastrophe. AZ returns because this time he refuses
Well, he's been
to watch
here. I don't think he's returning from much.
the world break again, even if it costs him everything. And so, the stage is set. You, Zygarde, and a fragile alliance of those who want to stop Quasartico from exploiting Necrozma's light. But it's not enough. You couldn't stop them. Necrozma...
You couldn't stop. See, this is where I really disagree. Like, if you want to make this theory about Necrozma and go off and all that, like, makes sense. But I don't agree with that Pokemon's going to make it, like, a bad ending where you just lose. I think the closest you could get to this theory happening is this being an alternative universe to the Ultra Recon Squad universe where you actually win. And where this is more so implied to be, like, the Ultra Recon Squad's universe is where you lost, but what's going to happen in ZA is you're going to actually win. Like an alternative universe type thing. If any of this theory is true.
World in eternal darkness. Zygarde fights to the bitter end, ever at your
bitter
side.
end, yeah, no.
Even in its complete form, it's overwhelmed by light so intense it burns through the very
I'm pretty sure in the manga they actually did complete Zygarde versus Ultra Necrozma, which is sick as hell, by the way. Such a cool idea.
Created to preserve. Legends Arceus showed us that Game Freak likes to experiment with these newer games, and with Pokemon ZA...
I mean, that's true. They do like to experiment, but I don't think they experiment with a dedicated loss. We didn't even see the Zelda franchise do that, like with Age of Calamity. They just did an alternate universe. I think that's just going to be the same case here. Like, if you want to say Zygarde's going to be, or Necrozma's going to be in ZA, and it's going to steal the light of the world, and, like, you know, it's going to end up being the Ultra Recon Squad world, whatever, sure. But I think it's going to end in victory, and they're just going to imply that if you lost at any point in the game, that's when, you know, the Ultra Recon Squad's world is, like happens, you know, Zelda timeline type beat, Fallen Hero timeline.
Being the first mainline game to receive an ESRB rating of 10+, I
True.
actually believe it will be the first Pokemon game where you end in failure. Not because you were weak, but
I
because
think that is definitely curious, though, that...
this story was never about saving the future, it was about understanding how it was lost.
Okay, interesting.
Be able to
Um...
preserve.
Ah... I like a lot of this guy's theories. I like the ideas. I'm not really sure I agree on that. I like the idea. I do. I mean, if you look at it in a vacuum and you don't consider like a lot of how like Pokemon works, or like, you know, you don't really consider the just sheer likelihood of a lot of the stuff, you know, I think it's a good theory. It's got good sound. It's got good ground. You know, it makes sense. I legitimately do think in like a in universe standpoint, if you just look at the Pokemon universe, it makes sense. It could happen. But I'm just of the simple belief that Game Freak's not going to put out a game where you lose, and I don't think Game Freak's going to be trying to focus at all on Necrozma or at all on any of that. I just don't see it happening. I think Necrozma is more so going to be saved for like a Legends of Alola game. I get that, you know, Zygarde was in the Alola games, you know, stuff like that, but that was obviously just a case of Pokemon Z stuff being put into Sun and Moon, just because they did not want to make a third version of the X and Y games, and that in this case they're not gonna like try and backtrack on that and say, oh yeah, so let's go back to it again and say that Necrozma is now actually relevant in Zygarde's story, right? I just don't see it happening, but especially with Necrozma being like, you know, an otherworldly Pokemon and stuff like that. We still don't really know truly where Necrozma originates, and you could say it originates from this universe if you believe the theory, but I just don't see Pokemon actually like trying to put like really focus on an Alola Pokemon in, you know, what is basically a Kalos type of game. And again, Pokemon Z stuff going into Sun and Moon is not really evidence for them having done that before. They just were kind of tying up loose ends at that point for the most part. So overall, do I believe this theory will happen? No, but I do think it's a very good theory, like in just a story vacuum of like, you know, trying to think about like Pokemon lore by itself without really like trying to consider, oh, like the basic approach of it's a Pokemon game, don't really think too much into it, right? I think that's definitely something that they're really focusing on, but if you just want to like look at the story, this could make sense. So I think it's a great theory. Again, go check out, you know, go check out Amazing Dragon and his channel. You know, subscribe to them, give them a like and stuff like that. I'm not trying to steal their content by putting out this video. I'm just super curious on theories like this. If you all like this type of content, and you know, I'm not getting like completely hated on for it, I might do more of it if people are interested. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. That's really just the point of it. Okay, I'll see you later. I hope you all enjoyed. Peace.